Welcome to The Plug, brought to you by Fat Tire Beer, America's only carbon neutral beer. Season 2. I have a longtime friend on here with me today, an aficionado of music, culture, and politics. My man, Luis Calderon. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm doing so great, Brother Russell. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks for coming on, man. How you been?
I've been all right, man. I've been, where we are in space and time today is early September 2020, as a marker through this journey that we're on all at the same time. I am like about 100 days after George Floyd, give or take. I'm in at the intersection of protest, pandemic, and politics. And, all those things are happening at the same time. And today, on Labor Day, am okay. I'm doing all right. I mean, I have to really break it down like that because it is a bit of an emotional hour-to-hour journey, day to day. Today, I feel good, man. I'm solid. Something could happen in an hour and it might change the tone. But right now, right here, right now, life is grand, man.
Good. So for those of you out there who don't know Luis, I've known him since we were kids back in Burlington, Vermont. And as I branched out as a snowboarder, you branched out as a musician and a music producer for a bit there. I know you still do that and you pass that on to your son. When you were doing the music, you were more producing, correct? And like spinning records and.
Yeah, I've actually never produced. I've just DJed. I've just played music. Like,
wow. Okay.
I started DJing, man, what year was that? That was 1990. And when you were coming out here in Burlington, which is where I still live, we were hanging out with the crew, VTSP crew, and it was such an important and awesome time in like snowboarding culture, like it was just so dope to be able to like have hip hop have such an impact on the humans that were riding that then they had such an impact on snowboarding itself. So we're talking like just like that early 90s, like brushy, like that whole era of snowboarding, which was probably the most important part of snowboarding, I think, from like a pop culture and fashion and style, point. And so I was like, I used to ride with you guys but like try to keep up with you guys. And I realized that I was probably not going to be a pro ripper. And, but my talents ended up being around DJing. I ended up DJing at like the college radio station here. When I was in high school, I was like 15 years old. I started DJing one of the only hip hop radio shows at the time. And,
I remember it.
And then I was able to like come to all the parties and like, play the music, and I got to be part of the scene. And it just, it's a thing I've just done my whole life. I just feel like it's been part of my identity, and I've taken, like I look at most things, all of my jobs, all my projects through the lens of a DJ.
Crazy. Well, just to let you know how I feel about DJing and the hip hop culture and music, and you as a part of it, I'll equate it to b-boying to the hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? So the DJ and the music, what you were doing in snowboarding was like a b-boy in hip hop in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, it's just they're symbiotic, So thank you for that. And you said something that was really kind of stuck out to me. You said how the hip hop culture really influenced snowboarding and how it helped it along gain traction in pop culture. which is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy, but what's crazy about it is that there was me and you.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only, you know, people of color around, but yet, as is in a lot of stuff, that part of it really kind of propelled it into the next level, as well as it being an awesome activity in sport. But I feel like a lot of people associated with it because of that. Now,
Yeah.
are you with me? Are you
I
against
am
me?
100%, man. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, go back through it. Like, and I think, in the spirit of documenting things accurately, it is important to discuss, because I don't know if and where and when this ever gets really fully like spoken on, but you got to look back at, let's look at everything leading up to 1990, 92, 94, that era, golden era of hip hop, but then also simultaneously golden era of Northeast snowboarding. And like, you got the first generation of Burton riders, and I only know really my focus, my area here, because I was here, right? I know what I know because of the guys who taught me when I came into it. But you have like the first era of riders, the Burton guys. You get into, and I'm going to be, I'm sure someone would like check me on my timeline, but you get into sort of like a Craig Kelly, right? A big moment with Craig Kelly. At the same time, you have like the Andy and Jack Coughlin, the Coughlin brothers, that bust out on their own here, and they start their snowboard shop, skate shop here in town, the Boarding House.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Andy and Jack are the same as a Craig Kelly, but I know that Andy and Jack, they had a shop, they were ahead of their time, and they got a bunch of us kids together, and one of those kids was our homeboy, Jeff Brushy.
Yeah.
And Brushy breaks out, boom, like, and really Brushy is the first to take us to like, full rock star level with this. You know what I mean? Like, he's around the world, he's on MTV and shit. Like,
he got the Gap posters on the sides of the bus stations in the city in New York.
Totally, man, totally. And like Brush, where Brushy's from, like the town I'm pointing at here, an hour away, is like country, dude.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
You know what it is, man. You know what it is. This dude is country. So you're like, how is this dude so influential and just like so, like amazing? The world is just like, who is this alien of a dude? But this dude is really, but really break it down. Dude was really like, he was one of the dudes just bumping, Public Enemy. He was one, really like Beastie Boys. Like, he was really one of the first dudes, riders, fully like hip hop, grows the dreads. He's like a white dude with dreads in the 90s. You know what I mean? And not on some like reggae Trustafarian vibe, but real like boom bap hip hop vibes, and
like some DOS effects. He was
digging DOS effects, and my man is like out here just cruising around the world, just fully repping us in that 93 till infinity vibe. And
shout out to my boy Tajay.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's all, and it was really, I think Brushy's entire shit was like, musically, like culturally, his influence was 100% hip hop. And that is 100%, the irony of all of that is that it's, people that looked like me and you at that time that gave birth to that. You know what I mean? And Brushy digs even deeper and goes in, and as did everyone else during that time, which is starts to like dig into the original source of hip hop, which is just like jazz samples. So there's that whole era where he starts to dig in. He moves up to San Diego, comes across homeboy Gray Boy All-Star, Gray Boy, right? Yeah. Like, boom, it just like now the shit hits a whole other level. You know what I mean? So you can't, it's undeniable the impact that hip hop, then jazz, then funk, then groove, all of black music, brown music had on someone like Jeff Brushy, and then the impact that Brushy had on the world from that point forward.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Brush had a huge impact. I mean, even his style was like hip hop grind, like all his grabs were, you know what I'm saying? Like everything he did was greasy. You know what
Do
I'm saying?
you remember a homie out here, this guy, Matt Lawrence,
Matty
skateboarder?
L, come on, bro.
Yeah, Matty L. I mean, VTS, you know, VTSP, Matty L. Matty L, I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, we can go all about VTSP shit all day, but like Matty, it's undeniable when you look back at like the timeline and history, Matty L's influence on Brush as a skater, Matty L as a skater, his style.
Oh,
His
really?
influence, I think so. I'm just gonna go back and I look at it and I'm like, yo, like Matty L's style as a skater, like I feel like Brush studied and then took that style and applied it to himself as a snowboarder.
Yeah.
And Matty L, you know, he's one of my earliest like DJ homies. Like we were, you know, again, like it was all punk, but then it was like Public Enemy, Ice-T, NWA, all of that, you know. So I think all of that has, you know, it had a big impact on the style. And so whatever, man, it's at the root, at the genesis of it all, you know, boom bap.
Yep. So now we're on music. Let's talk a little bit about hip hop and hip hop today.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, man.
Sure is. Yeah.
There's still an element of, you know, hustler music out there, but there's this new like drank sipping, perk popping element that me personally, I'm not gonna lie, I listen to it, I listen to some of it, and I don't mind it. I don't know if it's conscious music, you know what I'm saying? It's not, you know, but I tell people that are like, oh, I can't stand it. I was like, man, this stuff these days is for entertainment. It's pure entertainment. It's not. And now this is just to me, brother. It's not Nas. You know, like I saw Nas out here one time when that whole Ether beef was going down, and I swear he was spitting fire out of his mouth, man. And I was like this the whole time. You know, if I go to a Gunna show, there's not going to be 1 second where I'm like,
yeah,
unless some girl gets buck naked in front of me, you know. But that's that.
right.
What's your take on the kids these days wilding out?
Man, I think about this all the time because as a DJ, still, you know, like, I mean, first of all, I'm a father of 2 young adults now. My son is 20. He's a junior at the University of Vermont. My daughter is 16. She's a junior in high school here. And I still DJ out at a club. You know what I mean? Like I'll get booked to a college bar downtown and I got to go in there and do the thing. Like I can't be out here with no old man shit. Like I can't be out here with like, yo, back in my day. You know what I mean? Like
that don't work.
Cause it never worked. It never worked. It didn't work in 90s. In the 90s when some old heads were coming at me with like, yo, like this ain't hip hop. This ain't rap music. Sugar Hill Gang or whatever, you know, Grandmaster Flash. You're like, yo, what the fuck out of here? Like, it's not, first of all, like, you gotta, me personally as a real human being who has evolved year after year and become, you know, from being a young man to a man, to a middle-aged man, to an old-ass man, but who still chooses to be like in the space, I have to leave my, point of view at the door quite a bit. It's really important for me not to bring my personal, like what I bump at my house, which is John Coltrane. Like you can't do that shit at the club. Like nobody cares about that. You know what I mean? So I had to like separate my personal likings to what is out there when you play publicly. Now, and that's not limited to me. That's every DJ. Now, what responsibility I feel like young rappers have today to any kind of messaging, like I don't feel it's their responsibility no more than I felt like it was Nas's responsibility. or
No.
anyone else's. Like the reality is this: is there's when you look at the pie chart of conscious music, like in hip hop, I would say that like at best at any given point in time, to include like early '90s, like backpacker hip hop level of like conscious, KRS-One type of vibes. Like it probably constitutes about 15% of rap music at the time was conscious. The rest of it was full of, the tropes, hustling, getting chicks, killing dudes, like all of the colorful stories that they told then and they still tell now. It is probably about 10% conscious music and the rest is just what it is,
Yep.
Now, that standard, if I'm making that up and I'm just like, I don't have some sort of infographic about it, but I'm just going to go off the gut and say it's probably about 10, 15% conscious and then everything else is what it is.
Yeah.
If I were to take that chart and apply that to like white music, like pop music today or rock music today, I would say that it's probably to scale, probably actually more conscious. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
there's more conscious hip hop music happening today than there is in pop music happening today, for sure, right?
Well, here's the thing with that: if there ain't a problem, you don't got to talk about nothing.
Right. Exactly. However, if you go back to like the early '60s, when people were like, "Man, that was the best era," like Bob Dylan was out here talking on the shit. It was like he was like number one on the charts with his songs about consciousness. You know what I mean?
Well, there was a problem though, my brother. There was something called Vietnam that was going down in the '60s.
Yep.
And that was taking white kids and throwing them in the jungle in Southeast Asia. They were taking us too, but they were taking white kids, and that's a lot of what they were speaking on,
Right.
So there's that. We have another similarity between us. We both have juniors in college.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We both have mixed children.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter put up a post a couple months, right when this all went down, that hit me so hard, hit me like somebody hit me in the face with a brick, about her experience. And we live on separate coasts, but we occupy the same space as far as social class and how our kids grew up. So
You and I.
yes, you and I.
Yeah. Yes.
So she said stuff like, I don't like it when people you're the whitest black person I've ever known or shit like that, and she every time she hears of a black man being killed, she panics because it could be me, stuff like that. That's just real heavy to me as a father.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, your son's Riven, right?
Ravon. Yeah, Ravon.
Ravon. Yep. In Vermont is a lot like Washington, where there's a lot of merit on intellect and being liberal. So I'm just wondering, not to dig into his business at all, but you as a father, like how do you? And he's a boy too, so he's that's a whole different thing that I don't have to deal with. I got girls, so I don't have to deal with like, this is what we do. When you get pulled over, or I don't have to deal with any of that. She's a girl. I did deal with it, but it's not as intense as with a boy. I don't believe.
Because it's not as like life and death, but it's like death in slower ways. Like you Absolutely. Do have to have a conversation with your daughter about, now when you speak your mind, make sure like watch the volume of your voice and the tone, because they'll call you an angry black woman,
Absolutely.
These are the things we have to tell our daughters, like it's not as dire.
Yeah. I was more speaking on like the police. Like, so when you get pulled over.
Yeah.
So how has that I mean, he's doing great. He's rapping. He's going to school. Obviously, you and your lady, your wife, did a great job of growing these kids up. How's
Thank
he
you.
navigating stuff? And how are you helping him? I mean, at this point, he's a grown ass man, barely, but
Yeah. Man, it is like there's so much going on right now in my mind as a father, as an individual human being, having this experience right now, and then like leaning into my role and responsibility as the spiritual head of my family and my family's shepherd, and just removing all the dangers that are out there. It is the natural progression of things. Like, he's 20 years old. He just moved into his first college apartment. Like, something changes there. He's probably never, like, he's not going to move back in unless he absolutely has to for some economic reason or whatever. And like, at this point, this is the first of many experiences on his own. So as a father, again, not even including all of the stuff that's happening in life, you have to say, like, okay, hopefully I did like my job up to this point. I have pointed him in the right direction. I've given him all the lessons, the values, everything he needs to go forward from this point, and have the information he needs to be the best that he can be, Then you add what's happening here in life. And, this is what you're referring to is known as the talk, right? Like, that all black men have to give to their young sons. It used to be teenage sons. Now it just seems you got to just give that talk to these kids when they're like 6 years old, because of many studies coming out showing that the white mind sees a young kid as an adult early, right? So you have to even have these conversations with kids even earlier. And it's a shame. It robs them of childhood. They'll just have to just be like, when you go outside, there are people that might see you a certain way. But having to have that conversation with my kid, it was hard, like, and continues to be hard. Look, we live up in the liberal North, the white liberal North. And this ain't nothing new. I mean, this was touched on. Malcolm X talked about the liberal North. Martin Luther King talked about the liberal North. In many ways, the white liberal North is more dangerous than the emboldened racist South, because the Southerner has always let you and I know exactly what he or she and they feel and think about us publicly and openly. You know what I mean? Like,
it's out there.
But the liberal white Northerner has always done an interesting way of sort of concealing what they really feel and think about you, and it's always wrapped up in their institutions. And they'll never really admit to it, but it's always there. It's been there, and it is here still today,
Oh, I know.
And so I live in a place where, it's a home of Bernie Sanders, and so because of that, people feel like, this is like, Ben and Jerry's and Bernie Sanders, and there's no way we're like super progressive and there's no racism here, But Burlington, relative to just, 45 minutes in any direction, like, Burlington is not the same as the state of Vermont. The state of Vermont, Vermonters, there's definitely people who feel a certain way. And when my son gets in his car to go drive around, and, during COVID, this dude was just like bored of being locked up in the house, decides to get in his car, wants to drive around and just kind of like go for a drive. And he's telling me that he's doing this, and he's just driving around certain neighborhoods, just like, fucking, killing time. And I'm looking at him like, yo, you can't be doing that. Like, are you crazy? Like, you can't be driving around with no high top fade, like slowly driving around people's neighborhoods and anywhere in America, looking at their houses. And he's like, well, I'm looking at what kind of basketball hoops they have. Cause I'm, like, a basketball hoop on a driveway that has like a slanted driveway must be hard to take shots on, because you always got to go chase the ball. This is what he's telling me he's doing. It's like fucking around looking at basketball hoops and driveways, because he's just like, a kid. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm like, yo, you don't have the right to think like that. Be like, it's fucking war out here. Like, you can't be driving around here. If one person looks at you a certain way and they call it in, you can't explain that to no cop. They'll never give you the opportunity to explain
that you're in the house, bro.
That you're in an innocent kid, just daydreaming. You know what I mean? We don't have that.
That's it. Your case in the house.
It's 100% what they think. You know what I mean?
You look at basketball hoops, funny.
Now, the thing with the kid is that, as you said, my kid, your kid, they're mixed, right? So me and you, like, we're clearly part of the diaspora, the Black diaspora, okay? Like, our actual roots might be a little bit different, but the pit stop islands or wherever we were dropped off, but we all root back to some part of Africa, you and I, based on our melanin. Now, my kid and your kid we got cut with, like, a white partner. And it's not exactly the same experience for those kids. You know what I mean? They got their own shit.
Yeah, they do. But my daughter finally realized she Black. Because the police going to look at her or your son, and they ain't going to see white.
No.
They see Black.
They see Black, bro. They see that. I said, yo, man, you see that haircut you got? That high top fade?
Yeah. Ain't no white people. You can't.
That's the marker, homie. Like, you done fucked up. You chose. Like, you one of us. Because in the lineup, no matter how light a dude might be, could pass from, like, as light as that kid is to as black as black. Like, we are all suspect.
Yep.
Until proven otherwise. You know what I mean? And, like, that's
still even after proven innocent, they're like, well, you got away with this one.
Totally. So it's hard, man. It's hard to be on defense out here all the time. You know what I mean? It should stress you out, man. This is mad stressful.
Yeah. You did. So 2015, I get a call from Pat Bridges. Said, can you believe that Bernie is running for president? And I was like, yeah, that's great. He's like, you know who that is, right? And I was like, no. He's like, dude, that's Dave's dad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I met that dude. Wow. Oh, I didn't even. And the community, the snowboard community in Vermont, especially northern Vermont, Burlington, is real tight. So you and Dave are good homies. And you ended up working for Bernie.
That's right.
Still are or not, but you did for a while. That's huge.
Yeah, it was the hugest thing. Yeah. I mean, that's, again, rooted back to the story there is, Dave Driscoll, couple years behind you and I. He was sort of like when we were kids hanging out at that snowboard shop, Andy and Jack Coughlin, Brushy, VTSP, the whole crew. He's a year or two behind us. Always looked at him as sort of like kid brother, you know what I mean? And like the homie, but like in a kid brothery kind of way. We worked together at Burton, years ago. Then he went out to Nike and I went out to Cali. Then I came back. I took a job back at Burton and he came back and suddenly we were like working together. He's working on the team manager. I was working on brand and marketing, and we would just be hanging out, talking shit at lunch. You know what I mean? And as people started to, rumor mill about Bernie possibly running, I would just like come up to him. We would go to lunch. We'd go and be at photo shoots. I remember we were in a photo shoot in Colorado, and I was like on lunch, just like talking to him, like, yo, so what's up with Bernie? Is he gonna do this? If he is going to do this, like, what's the vibe? Like, do you want me to call Shepard Fairey, like, who did Obama's poster? I know him. Like, maybe he'll do Bernie's poster. Like, what's up with the music? Like, yo, what's the soundtrack? Like, what's his songs going to be for his commercials? Like, I just came at it just sort of organically. And then at lunch breaks, just drilling Dave with all this kind of cultural stuff. I'm like, yo, you got to he's got to be dope. Like, we got to, he's got to be able to resonate. And so whatever, like I ended up leaving Burton shortly thereafter. And the day that I left, Dave reached out and was like, man, if you're open to it, I'd love to, all this stuff we've been talking about, I'd love to get you and Bernie, my mom together and see what we could do something. And so suddenly like I'm like a snowboard marketing guy. And then there's a conversation on the table to go talk to a presidential candidate, you know what I mean? About doing this same stuff. And so I went and I met with them and, Bernie was really, really, very, very keen on making sure that I wasn't coming at him trying to like market and brand him. Like that's not what he was about. What he was about was making sure that artists and cultural leaders were able to like come into the campaign and the political revolution and that find issues that they were passionate about and to be able to get behind them and support. So it was like day one, like, yo, don't try to come out here and market me. Like just your job would be to get people in. And so that was it. I took the job as a director of arts, culture, and the youth vote on the Bernie Sanders 2016 presidential campaign. And no playbook, you know what I mean? Like nobody told me how to do the job. I just had to kind of like literally get in there and just figure it out, man. Like I was just like literally like Googling shit. Like, yo, like who made the poster? Like what dude like me did the Obama poster? You know what I mean? And there's like, oh, this guy Yossi, I'm like, oh, word. Then I met a guy who knew that guy. I went out to LA and I just started meeting people, man, and just sitting down like this, very much like what is the root genesis of this conversation. People, one-on-one, sharing stories, sharing tactics, sharing learnings with one another. And so a bunch of people did that with me and for me about how to bring culture into a political presidential campaign. And I did that and brought it in and just let it unfold. And it was an incredible experience.
Awesome. What was the like the biggest, it's not a culture shock, but what was the biggest shock in that experience for you? Like, was it Secret Service officers everywhere? Was it like, what was the biggest whoa moment for you?
I mean, the question about Secret Service, I remember I know exactly where I was the day Secret Service was introduced to the campaign. And that was a big shift, right? Like we were in New Hampshire. I was getting ready to we had a big rally there at the University of New Hampshire. There was it was a blizzard on the East Coast. I had like 6 bands flying in from all over the country to be opening acts for this big rally leading up to the New Hampshire primary. And it was like a total disaster, just trying to find, track artists. And then all of a sudden, boom, the Secret Service shows up. And I don't even know what that means. So like what it means, you guys get the fuck out of here. Like the whole building's got to get out. I don't care who the rock stars are. Like we got to check the building for
everything.
Everything. And I was like, oh, okay. And then from that point forward, how the movements worked totally changed, right? But that wasn't it. Like that wasn't the big shift, although that was a shift in that campaign. What I think one of the key things for me were there were 2 things. The question right now, the 2 things that would jump out at me would be that number one, how energy works, how like what I call like sort of 4th dimensional energy around like power, right? What power feels like around people and what type of people, how people react to power and how people react to perceived power. So, you are a man who walks earth with power. People see you and they react to you a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, and you could tell that the people who know you react the way, and then you could tell there's a bunch of people who don't know the fuck you are at all because they don't react that way. That's the key indicator. People react a certain way. And so that reaction in between, that invisible, is a little bit of power, energy, you know what I mean? And then so there's energy. I got to just study energy flow around people's reaction to celebrity and people's reaction to perceived power. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And like, I don't know, man. Like, let's just say you're dealing with somebody who is just like super logical and real, like, just like by the book driven for months, just working on a thing, right? You're like, man, this person's super buttoned up. Nothing can really get through this person. This person's on a mission, Then someone comes in the room and you see that same person lose their goddamn mind, like lose their right mind. You know what I mean? Because a person walks in, stands there, and then walks out. And you just like watch proximity to power change how people react, their energy, how they think, you know what I mean? And so it was all part of like just getting an understanding of people's influence on others and how to take that energy and bolster it and direct it, you know what I mean? And then also how to be careful with it, man. I think people lose their mind around that. A lot of good people lose their right mind around celebrity, one way or the other. You just see that like, that's a force. That energy is something to be conscious of. Like, what are the things that influence us? You know what I mean? And I think like what I started to pay attention to and really explore and examine were like, what is this thing around heroes and idolizing people and why?
Yeah, crazy. That's good, man. That's you've lived a super interesting, blessed life, and I think you said something about like how a snowboard marketing guy. It's funny how Burton, for one, is like the incubator for people to go and do huge things.
Yes.
Case in point, Nike got in the business and they just stole Burton team. Not snowboarder wise, but the people who are working in design and you hear of a lot of people who've worked at Burton who go on to doing like real corpo stuff. Or running, political campaigns or part of a political campaign for a presidential candidate. So I think snowboarding has something to it. I think it has like a cool factor, maybe a finger on the pulse of what was once youth, culture, but now there's old men like myself and you who still are in it. I don't know. I think it's interesting what our sport has turned into over the past 30 years.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I always recognize how you said it, I am super blessed. I am very, very blessed. I am very, very blessed and I'm very, very lucky. And I feel like it's almost unfair sometimes that I was one of the chosen ones, I am Cuban, I'm from Miami. Like that's where my people are, right? Yeah. For whatever reason, however it ended up being, my mother was brave enough to head north with just me and my sister and herself, and we ended up here, And this woman, an immigrant woman, took multiple low-paying jobs to provide for me and my sister, but she couldn't really be there, to take care of me every day. And so the streets took care of me, and I ended up hanging out at a snowboard shop. Though the street in front of the snowboard shop took care of me, And those guys were my first sort of shepherds, if you will, into the space. And then I got to meet all these guys, I got to be, as I mentioned, I got to be part of it all. And then I got to meet Jake early on, and I don't know, life went on, and I ended up being able to get a job doing this thing, which was insane. You're just yo, how do I now get paid? I have a job. I get paid on Fridays about this stuff, to tell these guys what I think about this shit. It was this is extracurricular. This isn't real, right? And then it's no, man, go make it real. You have the runway. We're giving you the keys. go make this real. And for me, my jobs have always been really about turning this activity and sport into a culture and a lifestyle. Like my job has always been in marketing roles to focus on the lifestyle side of things, right? And so Burton and snowboarding itself, I think, born out of like just born out of bucking the system, two middle fingers way up proudly. And, the actual act itself is rooted in getting over your fears. Like there's not one single thing in snowboarding that isn't scary as hell to do. You know what I mean? When you first do it. And those are those type of things that have stayed with me, and I think stay with, people who work in the space and work at that place that have been able, and the standards are so high. Jake was such a, you just never want to let the guy down. He led by example, and his thing about, understanding that there's a process of failing until you get it right. But the process was the most important part. And then we wouldn't be happy with just putting out shit. So understand the whole cycle, the whole life cycle of developing product, developing concept. You leave snowboarding and you go work at some regular corporate job. Like that's not how people think, man. You know what I mean? Like it actually gets super boring. You go take a job, you go at some corporate, spot, and it's like, it's so dumb. You're just like, man. So my whole experience has always been like, I leave, I come back, I leave, I come back. And I've been grateful to be able to have been part of the Burton family all the way through all these years. Right now I'm working with these guys. I'm working with Burton in an entirely different fashion. They reached out to me on a Sunday night when we were all watching America burn down, and they all felt like, we got to do something, we got to say something, but we don't know how or what to say. And, they called me and asked if we could meet. And I got on the line with them the next morning. Donna, the sons, the entire, executive team, and just started talking about, what I thought was going on in the world and how they could and should show up. What is their responsibility in all of this? And so we've just been working together for the last 3 months. I guess now it's not, in their Jedi justice, equity, diversity, inclusion training, and all the work around that. But now we're moving forward to impacting what would be forward-facing, consumer-facing efforts around representation in the culture and the brand. And so I feel super fortunate right now to be able to start it as one of the only kids that look like me in the room, and then now at a table where I can push them and pull from them and get them to commit, make a commitment to include more of us moving forward.
Okay, cool. You said something, and this is going to be the, you ever watch Desus and Mero or The Rainbow?
Yeah.
So yours, go make it real. That's fucking huge. Go make it real.
I don't know
if you know that you said that, but I heard you seen me writing. I had to write that down because my old ass, I didn't want to forget it. That's huge. That's it. Like, go make it real.
Man, it's so true, bro. Like, it's so true. I'm so that's all it is, man. That's all we have to do. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. And what a gift. Like, what a gift. We get to just make shit real. We have a vision, we have a dream, we have an idea, and we are afforded the space and time and to make magic happen and make things real.
Amazing. Luis, you're a gentleman, scholar, a brother, and a good friend. And I appreciate you. And I
Yo,
appreciate
I
what
love
you
you,
do.
bro. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I feel like at this point in time, it is important for us as a community to let each other know that.
Absolutely.
But where we are as in the development of time in our lives, in our journeys, you know, tomorrow's never promised for any of us anymore. Like it's something different when you're a kid snowboarding and just hucking yourself off of the hits. You feel like it'll never end. But now we're at this part in the journey, and we know tomorrow's not promised. So it is important at this point to let people that are in my heart know how much they mean to me, and you are one of them, brother.
Thank you, Louis. And I will be speaking with you soon, and
Right.
go make it real.
Let's go. Let's go make it. Love you, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, go.